Wow, good evening. Good evening, great people. A very good evening to you out there. A very good evening to you out there, my friends. I trust that you have been keeping well and you've been keeping safe also. It's wonderful to come to you this evening. It is indeed a privilege for me to have this opportunity to share with you some of the things that over the years have helped me, has helped to establish me, something that has helped to stabilize me. And that's the principle that I want to share with you this evening. My friends, my connections, families, and everyone, associates, thank you for joining. Thank you for your presence with me this evening. I appreciate it a great deal. Thank you for joining me this evening. And it's my hope that I'll be able to share some of the things in my mind with you as it concerns this very particular topic. And I started to kind of experiment with this topic, this thought, consciously or intentionally about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I started to tinker with this idea of sharing with you what I mean by the science of forward thinking. And so this evening, I want to share that thought with you, excuse me, via this broadcast. And I'm hoping that you will be able to learn one or two things. And I really want to ask that you do this for me, that at the end of the broadcast, if you have questions for me, if you have if you require clarification, if there are things that you want me to kind of throw more light into, or you have an experience that is similar to what I'll be talking about this evening, I would appreciate if you can share your thoughts with me. Okay, you can send me a private message in my DM. But if it's something that you think is not personal, is something you can share, you can put it in the comment box so that some other people can also learn from it as I respond to the question that you might have, or the comment, as it were. So this evening, I'm going straight into talking about the science of forward thinking. But I want to lay a foundation for what I would be hitting as my punchline. I want to lay the foundation. Now, over the years, I remember while we were growing up, we used to hear something like IQ, IQ, IQ. Oh, you've got a great IQ. You've got a great IQ. And you realize that over the years, that is the measure of anyone's intelligence. So if you wanted to be tested to see or find out how intelligent you are, by the time you have taken the test, which is more of a logical test, as it were, you're testing aptitude. So you find out that people say, oh, that person has a high IQ, this other person doesn't have a high IQ. And we saw that happen, and we still see it even in our educational system. And that's one of the injustices that, the education system kind of adores to children. So you have in a class a bunch of, kids in class, maybe 10 or less than if you are attending, if your children are attending, some elite school. You can sort of have maybe 10, 15, 20 if it's still, if some kind of private school. But then you find in government schools, I have seen a government school where you have about 100 students in one class. Okay, so you find a lot of students are packed together in the class, and they're going to be taught the same way, the same time, and the same test is going to be deployed across board to all of these children, and without giving consideration, as it were, that these young children, these kids, they have different learning needs, learning capabilities, and because somebody can quickly grasp something and another child cannot grasp something easily, it doesn't make the other child less intelligent. It just means that they have different learning styles. And so it is the duty of the system to be able to give such a child learning at their own pace, their own rate, and whatever it is. But we see that happens, a lot in the educational system. But as time, went by, we started to hear something like emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence became popular, or was made popular by a man known as Daniel Goleman. Okay, so an emotional intelligence is a measure of the ability of someone to be able to handle their emotions properly and use the knowledge of themselves to also manage other people, that work with them, that they're in a relationship with, their children or people they're leading and whatever. So you now start to find everywhere now there's a lot of emphasis on emotional intelligence. So everyone now, most people everywhere teach emotional intelligence. But I realized that it's not something that you can just learn and teach and just get certified and teach. It's something you have to live out. It has to be experiential for you to be able to teach emotional intelligence. And I remember in the World Economic Forum list of the skills or competencies of the future that employers will look for. And interestingly, the future was before COVID-19. COVID-19 has brought the future upon us. And so I think on that list you have emotional intelligence as number 6 or so, as a skill that is going to be required in the future of work. So you realize that you need to be emotionally intelligent. And emotional intelligence is built largely on 4 main foundations. Fundamentally, it talks about your ability to become aware of your emotions. That's the first one. To be able to, to be aware of your emotions, to be able to label your emotions so that you can give a name to how you feel. So sometimes you have a particular feeling and you're being asked, how do you feel? Don't just, I just don't know, I'm just feeling somehow. There's no feeling somehow. You need to develop your vocabulary, emotional vocabulary, right? To be able to give a name to how you feel. So sometimes I feel, violated. Sometimes I feel insulted. Sometimes I don't even feel anger, as much as I used to. So you can feel angry, but a lot of time I feel maybe disappointed. I feel, sometimes I feel helpless. So those have feelings. That's the first fulcrum on which emotional intelligence is built. Awareness, self-awareness, knowing who you are, knowing how you are, how you, your understanding of yourself, how your emotions, play out. The second fulcrum for understanding emotional intelligence is what is called self-management. Now you are self-aware. The next level will be for you to be able to do what? To self-manage yourself. To manage yourself, right? So you feel angry. So the feeling, that's the awareness now. I feel that I'm angry. But the next step you have to take is to now self-manage. I feel angry. I am angry. But because I understand self-management, I'm able to bring myself under control. So self-management is also called self-control. You're able to say, no, I'm going to determine the response that I would give to this person. Even though I'm angry, I'm not going to let my emotion take the better part of me and rule me. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to self-govern myself and say to myself, this is how I will respond to this situation. So you start to learn, even though you are angry, you don't have to use a vulgar word, you don't have to use a harsh word, you don't have to scream, you don't have to shout. You can still make your grievances known. You can still express how you feel without necessarily engaging in any of those acts, as it were, that is common when people are angry. That's the second fulcrum. This third one, on which emotional intelligence is built, is now your ability to do what? To know other people. Now, the first thing, don't get it right. The first two components of emotional intelligence is about yourself. The last two components of emotional intelligence is about other people. So the third one is for you to know other people, know how people, behave. And that's where we also have empathy. Empathy comes putting yourself in other people's shoes, knowing how they feel, knowing how it works with them, because now you know yourself. You know how it works with you in terms of emotion. Now you're taking that knowledge of yourself and you are transposing it on the other person to also know how people how they feel, people's emotion. And then the fourth fulcrum is now to what? To now manage relationships, manage the other person, because now your knowledge of your ability to manage yourself has helped you in a way to be able to also do what? Manage other people. So those are the four fulcrums on which emotional intelligence is built. And I think for anyone who is going to succeed in business, in the workplace, in life, in relationships, even with yourself, if you're going to lead a very happy life, you need to be able to master emotional intelligence. So you need this. Good. So I've talked about intelligent quotient, your skills in terms of aptitude, your ability to be able to tinker with figures, think quickly on your feet, come up with solutions and all of that. But then there was a research that was done, a lot of years ago now, at Stanford, that attributed success to 20% of intelligent quotient and 80% to emotional quotient. All right. So right now, what happened is you must be able to show some level of competency. But I want to go further to talk about 2 to 3 other types of intelligence. Now, I'm going to tie all of this together because you need to be able to understand all of this so that you can be able to deploy the science of forward thinking. Otherwise, you will not be able to deploy the science of forward thinking if you don't understand, how these intelligences come to play. So you've seen the role of intelligent quotient, emotional quotient. Now I want to talk about what's called failure quotient. I'm sure you'll be wondering, failure quotient. What is failure quotient? Now, failure quotient is your ability to measure. It's a measurement. When we talk about quotient, it's a measurement. So this is a measurement of your ability to fail intelligently. So it's possible that you can fail, but you can fail intelligently. Now, how do you fail intelligently? It's to be able to use failure to advance your own cause. So that's failure intelligence, or failure quotient. So your ability, it's the measurement of how you can use your experiences, right? Your failures to be able to do what? To advance yourself, to learn from it. So that's also something that I need you to hold with your left hand as we go on this talk this evening. So the more you are able to do that, the more you are able to use your experience of failure, right, to advance yourself, the more you become, the more your failure quotient kind of increases. So, and you need that in the journey of life. Is a critical skill for anyone to have. Then I want to now zero in on the last one. The last one, which is what I call adversity quotient. Adversity quotient is very critical. Adversity quotient is the score that measures your ability, right, to be able to deal with adversity in life. So it is a score of your ability, is a measurement of your ability to be able to deal or cope with adversity in life, and is also called the science of resilience. So resilience is one critical tool, or adversity quotient is one huge intelligence that is required or needed for a life of success. And when we talk about adversity quotient, or the science of resilience, your ability to be able to stay the long haul. So sometimes it is called grit, it is called your staying power. Are you the type that fail quickly or collapse quickly under pressure? So the Bible says that if you fail in the day of adversity, the Living Bible says you are a poor species. It says your species of a human being is a lower level of human being. You are a poor species if you fail in the day of adversity. So now you know, because we're talking about adversity quotient, your ability to be able to withstand pressure, to be able to stand in the face of pressure. So that is what it means when we talk about adversity quotient. Your ability, resilience, your ability to be able to be resilient, to be resilient, to go through tough times. Do you know the way you're going through tough times with a smile on your face? Have you seen some people, whatever they're going through, immediately you're going to see it in their face. Their facial expression, their body language just gives them away. When they're walking, it feels like they're having the weight of the whole world on their head. So your ability to withstand pressure, resiliency, you're going through it, but you're keeping your smile. Because you know that it is a going through, it is not a staying put. See, because that's the thing we need to understand about this. Is a going through, it's not a staying put. You're not staying there. It's a phase. It will pass away. But listen to me. Now, the point is when it now passes away, people will remember your attitude. Will you be proud of yourself? Right? Will you be proud of yourself when you now look back and see how, the things that have happened has happened? So these are critical components for success that you need to have in place. This success, this level of intelligences, your intelligence quotient, your emotional quotient, your failure quotient. There's even what is called the success quotient, and then also there's the adversity quotient. So these are all, because have you realized, I have seen this. I have seen this, but I do not have a scientific or empirical response to it. But I've just seen it by just doing a random random sampling and looking at it. I have found out that back in the university, have you realized that years after, some good years after, 20 years after, it is not the most intelligent in school that is the most successful outside. Have you ever sometimes kind of sit down to find out how this is so? It's not. I realize it is not the most the most intelligent in school. Because back in school, the level of intelligence that is required to get out of school is actually your IQ. Some people might not have it in abundant supply. But you know what? They might have their emotional quotient in high supply. They might have adversity quotient, because most people that succeed in life, they didn't succeed because they tried and stopped. They succeeded because they were consistent at doing what they were doing. They were consistent at doing what they were doing. So that's very critical. So if you are talking about success, we need a combination of all of these intelligences together. And I can assure you that when you have all of them together, in my estimation, in my opinion, I feel strongly that adversity quotient is the cap for all of them. Your ability, because you have a strong IQ, you have strong failure quotient, you have strong emotional quotient, but then you lack the staying power. Every little thing that happens to you that you don't like, that you don't enjoy, you quit. Everything, you get upset. You get upset, you say things you ought not to say. You fight people who are not fighting you. You're always seeing enemy in everything and in everyone. The chances that such a person will succeed is very slim, because nobody is an island. You need other people to succeed. You need the contribution of people in your life to succeed. I have never seen in my life a self-made person. We are all a product of different people at different point in time in our life. Some people, all they did for us, which is not just ordinary, is that they put in a word for us somewhere when we do not have a voice. Somebody just mentioned your name somewhere. You say, oh yeah, they just mentioned my name, I have my skills. You can actually rot with your skill if there is nobody to pull you up and put in a word for you somewhere. So nobody is an island, and you need to understand that all of this level of intelligences come together to help, but the cap is adversity quotient, your ability to be able to withstand pressure when pressure comes, right? So the Bible says, if you fail in the day of adversity, King James says you are, I think King James says, if you fail, you are a poor species. That's the Living Bible. I think because that's the one I really love. If you fail in the day of adversity, you are a poor species. And so if you're really going to succeed in life, you need a combination of all of this, and the cap is your adversity quotient. How tough are you? Have you seen entrepreneurs? When you see somebody they say is a serial entrepreneur, you need to just go and sit down under them. Don't be carried away by their successes. Sit down and ask them what they did and failed. Don't leave the things they have done that is succeeding. Just ask them what they did, and didn't work out for them. That way you will understand. Most entrepreneurs that I know, they are people who have a powerful staying ability. They stay with it. They believe in what they're doing. They've done everything that can be done. But there is a time of gestation for every dream, every business, every vision in life. I don't care what you have done to make it work. There is a time of gestation. There's a time for that thing to go through the process. And I've seen people who have tried to circumvent the process of their making. They always collapse before they even take off. Because let me tell you, when you try to circumvent the process of your making, what happens is that you are not prepared for the challenges that are going to come. And challenges are normal to life. As a matter of fact, I always expect challenges to come, because I know that at the end of every success, it opens the door for a new opportunity that poses itself as a challenge. And so, I want to zero in on the science of forward thinking. And I want to zero in on it from the book of Philippians chapter 3. I want to, cap it up with what Brother Paul said. I'm going to read from verse 12 of Philippians chapter 3. He said, and I quote, he says, "Not that I have already obtained all of this, or I've already arrived at my goal or destination. I haven't. But I press on to take hold of that for which Christ took hold of me." Verse 13, he now said, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing that I do, and that's the thing that I'm sending to you, my friends, this evening through this broadcast. Paul said, one thing I do, and that's the thing that I want you to do. That is the secret of the science of forward thinking. He says, one thing that I do is forgetting what is behind. Forgetting what is behind. And he said what? And straining towards what is ahead. Now let me come back and just stay a little bit on forgetting what is behind. Now, if you are going to amount to anything seriously, anything meaningfully, anything, close to the original intention of God for your life, you must understand that that's one thing you need to do, forgetting what is behind you. Now, whether what is behind you is success or failure, it doesn't matter. You must learn how to do what? Forget what is behind you. Oh, you succeeded. You did something. I mean, there's so much noise around. I hear things like, oh, I made my first million before I was 25. I became a millionaire before I was 22. I did all of it's wonderful. I really don't have anything, against such. But I realize that our society is a society that amplifies such things so much that you don't even ask them what was the process. And it has a way of putting subtle pressure on young people. So some people in society start to feel that their life is not amounting to anything. They have to just make it in code by all means. Right? Now, there's nothing wrong with being successful. I am saying that if you're really, really going to arrive at your goal in life, if you're really going to be successful, because what some people are calling success today is a far cry from what God has in store for them, right? But because that challenge, they are stuck on stupid, they are stuck on success. So because they think the last thing they've seen is, I've seen it all, you can't see it all. And so don't ever get stuck on your success. That is some people's cemetery. Some people have made their past success the burial ground for what can happen to them again in the future. So they can't even see anything beyond where they are right now. And for some people, their problem is their failure. They can't seem to get past their last mistake. You can't seem to get past the last mistake you made. Listen to me. People who make mistakes are people who are making effort. So I give you credit for trying. I give you credit for making effort, for putting in the work. You are learning something, but don't get stuck on the failure. Paul said, one thing that I do, in case I don't do any other thing, in case you don't even know what I am doing, in case you don't know, let me say to you, if I'm not conscious of any other thing that I'm doing, there is one thing that I do. I forget what is behind me. Whatever is past, I let it pass. If it's a success, I let it pass. I go past it because there are several successes still ahead of me. That is how to deploy the science of forward thinking. To not get stuck on your past success or not allow your past failure keep you from trying again. So Paul said, one thing I do, forgetting what is behind me and straining for what is ahead, because there is still a lot ahead of you. Don't get stuck on what is past. Don't get stuck on what is behind you. It is behind you. Whether it is success, it is behind you. Listen to me. The success of yesterday is really not going to be relevant for today or for tomorrow. Oh, because every day the mercies of God are fresh. His plans for you are new every morning. Every morning, God has a plan for you. When you wake up and say, oh, thank God for another day. God says, my boy is up. We're about to also go and accomplish greater things today. Forget yesterday. Paul says, one thing I do is that I forget the things that are past behind me and do what? And I strain for what is ahead. I love that word. He said, I strain toward what is ahead. There's still a lot of things ahead of you, and you need to learn the science of forward thinking. Now let me now link this to all of the intelligences, how I started. So I've had people say to me, it looks like you don't really understand what I went through. I lost a lot of money doing businesses. I lost, in short, being able to trust people in business. I don't think it's something I want to do again. Listen to me. I'm not taking for granted or lightly whatever you have gone through. My focus this evening is that don't get stuck on your past failure or your past success. Why? Because there's still a lot. You don't use the experience that you've had, your experience of failure, to now, to create a theology about your life around it. See, I had an experience about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, I planted a church. I planted a church in Lekki, Phase 1, in Lagos. And together with my wife, we did a great deal of work, put in a lot, into it. We were using a particular facility twice a week that we were having to pay heavily, and we did that for about 2 years. And I felt very frustrated. In short, I ran out of resources. We didn't have, cash flow wasn't there again, because we were not running the church or ministry because we wanted to get something out of it or out of anything from anyone, because we felt God wanted us to do that. So we did. And so, out of frustration, I traveled to the city of Ibadan to have a word with my mentor. And I was there, I got there, and I told him all my experiences and all of that. He looked at me, he said, "Really, you've done a great deal of job." He said, "You did a great job." He said, "You know what? That particular location, I have been trying to plant a church there. It's been very tough. But you were able to do that." And you know one thing he said to me? He said to me that you have learned how not to plant a church. He said, "Do you know today, if you start to organize a seminar and teach people on how not to plant a church in Lekki, you'll be very successful, because you have learned from that particular experience." So I'm saying that to say to you that even when you do something, you embark on a project, and it looks like it's not successful, it's not working, it's not turning out the way you expect. Even if it's a business, you put in a lot and it's not yielding as you have expectation for it to yield. I understand. I've been there before. I've done 1 or 2, 3 things that didn't work. As a matter of fact, I'm a person of idea. I do a lot of things. And I can tell you that out of the lots that I've done, I've only succeeded with a few of them. But one thing that I have learned in all of that is that I've learned how not to do those things. And now I've learned how to sit down and evaluate what are the lessons. When you fail, what you should do is not to call a pity party. It's for you to sit down and do a self-evaluation and ask yourself, what did you do? Listen, sometimes we fail not because it couldn't have succeeded. It could just be, in line with the parable of Jesus, where he spoke about a man who wants to build a house. That if you want to build a house, you would need to sit down to see and to check your resources, if you have enough to build the house. So what you do when it doesn't work, when it looks like what you're trying to do did not succeed, sit down and self-evaluate and ask yourself very honest questions. Brutal honesty. Ask yourself, look at yourself in the mirror. If you need to be hard on yourself, these are some of the things that I do. I look at myself and I tell myself, you didn't do well with this one. This one, you didn't do well with this one. This is not okay, right? So what you do, you take your journal and start to write the lessons you learned. Why? Because if you don't do that, if you attempt the next project without learning the reason why you didn't succeed with this, you are likely to repeat the same mistake, and that's not wise. So I'm saying to say, don't get stuck on whether your past success or your past failure. Let it be something that you have put behind you. Like Paul said, he said, one thing that I do is that I do of forgetting what is behind me, and I strain towards what is ahead of me. And it says what? In verse 14, I press on toward the goal so that I can win the prize. So Paul says, I press toward the goal so that I can win the prize. Wow. That is the fulcrum on which the science of forward thinking is built. You've succeeded, you've been, things have been very okay for you in the past, and suddenly things turned around and things are no longer good. Don't get stuck on, if it was those days when I used to drive, if it was those. Can you please wake up to reality? It's no longer those days. You don't have it anymore. And that's what some people do. You get stuck and you try to use the memories of the past as an escape from your reality. Your reality right now is that things are no longer the way things used to be for you. Things have changed. Maybe you used to have 2-3 cars. Now you don't even have any. You used to live in a very highbrow area. Now you can barely pay the rent of a room and a parlor. Don't sit down and wallow in self-pity. That's not going to bring a solution for you. What's going to bring a solution is for you to sit down and take an inventory of your life and ask yourself, how did I get in? How did I get to this place? Because let me tell you what happens. What happens when you're not engaging the power of forward thinking? What happens? Awesome. So what happened to you when you're not engaging the power of forward thinking and you're getting stuck on your past success? What happens is you block your mind. You block your mind, right, from productivity. Because as soon as you get stuck on the past, what happens is that you cut short, you close the valve that supplies you imagination, your creative ability. You short circuit it. That's what happens. That is what you do when you do that. You short circuit your creativity. You short circuit the ability, and you need your creative mind and your imagination to be able to create what you need for the future. Don't get stuck on. See, somebody said to me a couple of years ago that, look, that your mind is not a storage device. It is not a storage device. If you want to store anything, get a journal, biro and paper, write it there. The purpose of your mind, the purpose of your brain is for imagination. What is imagination? Imagination is your ability to be able to mentally create the picture of the future that you want. But when you get stuck on the past, you short circuit your ability to be able to create the picture of a better future. Bad things happen to people in life. But you know what? People get up. I remember many years ago, probably close to some 30 years now, I read the book, the Robert Schuller book, Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do. And that is the truth. Tough people do. I remember back in my university days, I was living off campus. There's a stream close to my off-campus home there. That stream, gentle, not much force, but it was consistent. That is how you win. And can I tell you, that stream, as gentle as it was then, it was cutting through rocks, cutting through stones, until it chops off those rocks. Why? Because it was consistent. It was consistent. It stayed. And you need all of that to be able to deploy the science of forward thinking. So in talking about all of these intelligences that I've talked about before, you need to have all of them to help you to deploy the science of forward thinking. Because the thing is, if you do not have a very high adversity quotient you are going to give up before your breakthrough comes. You're going to give up on everything you try to do in life. If you do not have or deploy emotional quotient, if your level of emotional intelligence is low, you are not likely to succeed in life. Why? Because even when you experience failure, you would need people around you. You would not think that it is somebody that is responsible for your failure. That is one thing that people who engage the science of forward thinking do. They take responsibility for their life. They sit on the driver's seat of their life. They do not abrogate the reason for their failure or success to anything other than themselves. They take full responsibility. So, my friends, this evening, my word for you is that whatever it is that you're going through or you've gone through, you're successful. Thank God for your success. But you're better than where you are right now. I don't care how successful you are. There is still a lot of ground to cover. So one thing I want to urge you to do, forget what is behind you and do what? Strain for what is ahead of you. Excuse me, if you have failed before, don't get stuck on that place. Don't allow it affect your self-confidence. Because that you failed in a project does not mean you're a failure. You must understand how to separate an event from a person. You are a person, the failure was an event. You attempted something that didn't work, right? So you must be able to separate that and tell yourself, I'm going to get up again. I'm going to forget what is behind me and I'm going to strain for what is ahead. Because can I tell you, until you keep pressing for what is ahead, you are not guaranteed to win the prize. Because that's when there is a prize to win. Why? Because there is something that is ahead of you that you're looking forward to. That is how to engage the science of forward thinking, forgetting what is behind you. And, in doing that, somebody say, oh, forget. How do you forget? You need a combination of all of those intelligences that I've talked about for you to be able to do what? To forget. To forget and move forward. Because there is a going forward that you have to do. Forgetting those things. Engage emotional intelligence. Your failure quotient. Your adversity quotient. Because, you see, these days I see a lot of people and it breaks my heart for them. It breaks my heart for them. During this lockdown right now, we still saw, I read in the news of a young lady in Abuja who killed herself, right? Because her boyfriend was caught with, for crying out loud, for God's sake. I know that a heartbreak can be devastating, but a heartbreak is not the end of life. A heartbreak can be the bend on the road. It's not the end of the road. All of these things boil down to perspective, to people not getting stuck on their past. If somebody can cheat on you, that means they are not really, you are better than them. That's why you deserve better. So move on and don't kill yourself. I mean, it is, I can't understand that, but I know that is a function of a very low adversity quotient. Because when your adversity quotient is high, your ability to be resilient, to say, I'm going to go through this. I know the situation is tough. I know the situation is bad. Sometimes it can be unbearable. I'm not downplaying the import of the challenges that you might have, but I'm saying that there is a better way to solve the problem. For you to engage the science of forward thinking, forgetting the things that are past and straining to what is ahead of you. And I said all of this intelligences helps you to be able to go through that, helps you to build the science, to be able to build the resiliency that you need to move forward. Your ability to move in spite of the challenges, in spite of the difficulty. See, people, you hear someone who has, They've done exams a couple of times. They didn't pass, but they kept at it. Some people might need to write their own GC or NECO 4 or 5 times before they make it. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means that we all have different level of learning and assimilation. We're different human beings and we have different priorities in life. But eventually, I really give a lot of credit to such people because they didn't give up on themselves. They kept trying. They kept trying. I remember back when I was in secondary school, I had this friend. While we were in school, he was not able to go to school. He couldn't afford to go to school, so he was serving his master, the master that he was working with. He was serving the master. But can I tell you, I think I was in year 4 in the university when he came into year 1. He eventually, wrote GCE. He wrote GCE. The first time he didn't pass, he didn't give up. He didn't pass not because he couldn't pass. He didn't pass for so many reasons, and maybe one of it was that he didn't have the kind of dedication. Those of us who were not serving any old master, who were not working anywhere, we had all of that attention and time to study. But he would have to work in the shop from morning till evening, and then it's when he closes at night that he's able to now come out and come back and read. How much can he do at that time? But eventually, the rest is history today because he graduated from the university. That is what we call adversity quotient, a very high level of it. Your ability to be resilient. Difficult times will come. They will always come. That's what makes life life. But your ability to be able to stand and then engage the signs of forward thinking and tell yourself, where I am now is the least that I can be. I'm not going to get stuck here. I'm not going to get stuck on whether it is success, whether it is failure, because like Apostle Paul said, one thing that I do is forgetting what is behind and striving for what is ahead. My friends, you have a lot of things ahead of you. Don't give up. Don't give in. Your business used to do well before. Now it's no longer doing well. I sympathize with you. I know it might be tough. It's really tough for a man to not be able to pay his bills. It's really tough. It's a huge bruise on the ego of a man. It's a huge dent that a man can't pay his bills. He feels less of a man. He feels ashamed of himself. But sometimes we need to take it easy on ourselves. When you're making effort, understand something. That there's always going to be a light at the end of every tunnel. There is always a light at the end of every tunnel. It's not the time for you to give up. It's not the time for you to give in. Business might be tough. Business is tough. But I'm telling you something. You're tougher than that. Engage the science of forward thinking. Look at what is ahead of you. To engage that, develop your emotional intelligence. Build it up. Adversity intelligence. Build it up. You need your failure intelligence, success intelligence, your intelligence, quotient. Build them up. And together, with the help and the grace of God, you will come out of any situation. If you're succeeding right now, you have more grounds to cover. You have more grounds ahead of you. Where you are now is the least that you can ever be. Your success now is the least of the success that you can ever have. My friends, this is the much that I want to share with you today on the science of forward thinking. But I have a request. I have a request to make to you. I'm putting together a very, very special session. It's a masterclass. It's free, but I would want you to show interest so that I can, share with you the day and the time. I don't know yet. It might not be on Facebook. It's likely it might be on Zoom. On Zoom because I would want to share my slides with you, and I want to share with you something that I've been working on for a while, and it is titled The Mystique of Ownership. I want to teach you what ownership means. Ownership is critical. Ownership is critical. So what a lot of people think they own today really owns them. They don't own anything. Whether it's real estate, whatever you think you own, I want to, bring that to you. And I want to also tie it to the reason Africa is the way it is. Because there's no ownership. So if you're interested in joining me in that masterclass, the mystique of ownership, I'll appreciate if you can send me a DM, possibly with your email address, functional email address, so that I will send the invitation directly to your inbox. Because I would like to share with you my slides and explain some things. And it's my desire that at the end of that masterclass, you can go out and start to take ownership of the things that are within your sphere of influence. It's a very interesting topic. It's a very interesting research that I've been making for some time now. And I want to share that with you. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate I've seen a lot of people that have joined me today. Thank you. I am so very grateful. And I'll be coming your way again shortly with another topic of discussion. But please do let me know again if this talk today has been beneficial to you, if it has helped you, if you have learned something. If you don't mind, you can share with me your key learning points, the things that you learned. If you have comments, if you have questions that you want to ask, you need further clarification, I'll be more than willing, to oblige you, my time to share with you, to share more, throw more insight into it. You can send me, a DM in my inbox, or at the same time, if it's something you feel anyone and everyone can learn, you can also put it in the comment section, and so I can respond there and everyone can learn. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that you stuck with me till this time. Thank you so much. God bless you. I appreciate you. Keep safe. Keep well. I know that we're going to come out of this at the end of it. We've always beaten all of those diseases and pandemic. COVID-19 will not be an exception. We will beat it. We will come out of it. God bless you, my friends. Have a wonderful night wherever you're watching from. God bless you.